Hey everyone. So, I know I've talked in the past pretty extensively about married life and what it's like to wear a ring on my finger all the time. But I thought I'd talk a little bit today about the actual process of getting married and what it was like for me and my wife to plan our wedding. So, at first, my wife and I weren't even really sure that we wanted to have a traditional wedding at all. Just between the costs and the burden of planning it and the protracted timelines, we thought that it might just be easier in the end to just go and get married at City Hall, like they did in that one episode of Grey's Anatomy. But we decided that a City Hall wedding, it just wouldn't have the same liability and opportunities for calamity that a big wedding would have. And after discussing it, we realized that we really did want a wedding, just like the ones that you would see in the movies, where something inevitably goes wrong and it ruins the whole event. Something that we could look back on and remember for the rest of our lives. So we decided to just go for it. And we spent a lot of time looking at different venues. We really wanted to find the right place that would provide a great backdrop for petty drama between our guests. And ultimately, we settled on this just beautiful outdoor venue in the middle of the woods, which we thought would really maximize our chances that it might rain during the ceremony or that a wildfire or some other natural disaster might strike in the middle of the event. We were also very deliberate in hiring a highly attractive looking wedding planner that we thought at least one of us might inadvertently develop romantic feelings towards, but that never came to fruition. And they were regrettably totally professional. But they did help us with our seating arrangement to try to put as many people as we could next to each other who we knew hated each other with a passion and were likely to cause a scene. We also sent out invitations to as many previous romantic partners as we could in the hope that they might interrupt the ceremony shouting, "I object," and then proceeded to declare their undying love for one of us. And we also tried to invite plenty of other controversial guests, ranging from disapproving relatives to rambunctious party animals that we had never actually met before, to people that we suspected might actually be our real biological parents. But unfortunately, they all had prior commitments. We really learned only too late that in order to get the most obnoxious guests, you really have to book them out pretty far in advance. Just because they're so busy attending and ultimately disrupting various other weddings, they're a very hot commodity. That said, we did still hold out hope that maybe some of them might show up unannounced following a sudden change of heart, but that didn't happen. We really had the hardest time, though, finding an officiant who was totally inexperienced and who might either show up late or not at all, forcing us to enlist one of our close friends or relatives who just happened to be ordained to marry us at the last minute. But we did ultimately settle on someone who seemed incompetent enough and who had to travel by both plane and car a very long distance to get to our ceremony out in the middle of nowhere. But he turned out to be just okay, though. I mean, he showed up on time, and despite being kind of goofy and tone deaf, he really didn't have a ridiculous accent or an over-the-top and distracting manner of speaking. Really, the worst thing that he did was he signed his name in the wrong place on our marriage license, and we had to mail him another one for him to sign after the fact. But he was by no means the train wreck of a person that we had really been hoping for. And when the big day finally came, it felt like one thing after another just kept going right. I mean, no one was left at the altar. No one lost the rings. No one totally flubbed their vows or said the wrong name. No one got stuck on a plane or at the airport. All of the speeches were heartfelt, not at all embarrassing or egocentric. There were no love triangles, no acts of God, No one went missing or turned up murdered. Neither of us did something that they totally regretted the night before. There was no family drama. Everyone offered to pay for everything. The venue didn't cancel on us at the last minute. Only one person got totally boisterously drunk. And they were actually a lot more fun that way. I mean, we had this just absolutely beautiful tiered arrangement of gourmet cheeses that our caterer put together, stacked in the shape of a wedding cake, which is a really cute idea, given that both my wife and I are really passionate lovers of cheese. But at no point during the reception did an errant beach ball or a small child come crashing down on it, showering both us and our guests with bits of cheese in a kind of grand spectacle. I mean, nothing went wrong at all. The entire day was just perfect. Not at all like you would see in the movies. It was a massive disappointment overall. Just a really uneventful day apart from us getting married. Really, the only terrible thing that happened was we lost the keys to our car and ended up getting stranded in the middle of nowhere. But that happened the day after the wedding. So there was no opportunity for public embarrassment and utter catastrophe. If only that had happened on our actual wedding day. But what really bums me out, though, is my wife's family traveled from halfway around the world to come to our wedding. And for them to not be able to experience what a proper American-style wedding is supposed to look like, as depicted in film and television, I have to imagine it must have been a real letdown for them. Why else would they travel all that way, if not to have the opportunity to convince their little girl, who had developed second thoughts moments before the ceremony, that she should still go through with it? One time I attended a wedding where one of the guests got completely wasted and attempted to urinate in public right in the middle of the reception. And I think in the end, despite the extensive planning that goes into a big event like a wedding, those kinds of special moments that someone will regret forever, they just turn out to be totally spontaneous, and you just can't plan for something terrible like that to happen. But our wedding was held in October of 2019, and both my wife and I look back on it and we think, if only we had waited another year and held our wedding in 2020. I mean, that would have been the best possible, worst possible scenario.